Every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening and welcome to Patrick Christys Tonight.
There is no non-diverse hire at Aviva without it being signed off by me and the Chief People Officer.
White people are increasingly victims of racism. Whites need not apply. White people banned from Christmas parties. Are the woke diversity crowds the actual racists here? And what on earth has happened to Gaynor Lord? Mystery surrounds her disappearance. Here are the final moments where she was caught on CCTV. I speak to a top cop about what could have happened and how the police search is going so far. With another by-election potentially looming, this time in the Blackpool area, should Sunak bite the bullet and just call a general election? We have a head-to-head on that shortly. And finally, Prince Harry actually admits it.
Up. Oh, that's Harry Wells' job.
Well, not many people would disagree with that. On my panel tonight, I have got top columnist Alison Pearson. I've got the lovable Lord, Sean Bailey, and the sensational Stella Chantakidou. This is Patrick Christys Tonight. Let's do this. Email me now, gbviews@gbnews.com. Get in touch. Is it OK to discriminate against white people? I'll see you after the headlines.
Patrick, thank you. Well, let's start with that news that Patrick was talking about there. Why police are saying there are some now indications why a woman in Norwich may have left her work earlier than usual on the day she went missing. Gaynor Lord was last spotted on CCTV cameras on Friday afternoon, and Norfolk Constabulary say it is likely the 55-year-old may have entered a nearby river. The force says specialist divers are working now in extraordinarily difficult conditions, and they think it's going to take a couple of days or even longer to complete their investigations.
So there's a number of lines of inquiry that we are pursuing, but at the moment everything that we know is pointing to a high probability that Gaynor went into the water, and that would be from the CCTV, from the very limited witnesses that we've got available to us at the moment, and other lines of inquiry that we're pursuing about Gaynor's behaviour in the lead up to her disappearance. So at the moment the river is a really key factor for us. Now it's not to say that other specialist police teams aren't working on other lines of inquiry, because they are, but at the moment you're seeing that intensive effort around the searching of the water and the parks around and some of the other land around this area.
Meanwhile, a missing British boy who's believed to have disappeared 6 years ago has been found in France. Greater Manchester Police say the boy, spotted in Toulouse yesterday morning, is now a teenager but was just 11 years old when he went missing after leaving the UK to go on a holiday to Spain. The force said it is now in touch with the French authorities to put safeguarding measures in place. Now, the Bank of England held the interest rate today at 5.25% for the third time in a row. At Parliament's Treasury Committee meeting last month, the bank's governor said the threat of the UK's inflation problem is being severely underestimated. 2 nurses from Blackpool in Lancashire are both facing prison sentences after they were found guilty of illegally sedating their patients. 54-year-old Catherine Hudson has been given 7 years and 2 months for drugging patients at Blackpool's Victoria Hospital between 2017 and 2018. Her 48-year-old colleague, Charlotte Wilmot, was found guilty of encouraging Hudson to drug a patient and sentenced to 3 years behind bars. A body has been found following the explosion on an industrial estate in South Wales last night. Searches were carried out at the site today after one person was unaccounted for. Formal identification of the body has yet to take place, but officers are supporting the family of a person who's been recorded as missing. Police say there were no other reports of any injuries, and they would now begin investigating the cause of the explosion and the resulting fire. Lastly, the funeral for the former Minister Baroness Kinnock has taken place. The family of the MEP and wife of ex-Labour leader Lord Kinnock says she was a proud democratic socialist who campaigned for justice and against poverty all her life. She was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in 2017. Sir Keir Starmer described her as a true fighter for the Labour Party. He was seen arriving at the funeral ceremony earlier on today alongside Gordon Brown, Tony Blair, and also rolling up in a car a bit later on, Sadiq Khan. On TV, online, DAB+ radio and the TuneIn app, this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Imagine the scenes. I hold a Christmas party for friends and colleagues, but the invitation strictly states that people of colour are not welcome. Or perhaps consider the outrage, the outright cancellation. If your local theatre held a whites-only night away from what organisers called the, quotes, black gays, you just wouldn't do it, would you? Or maybe consider the nuclear fallout if it was revealed that your boss insisted on personally signing off on non-white recruits. Well, unfortunately, they're not actually hypothetical situations. They are genuine examples of discrimination based on the colour of someone's skin, except the real-life versions have the roles reversed, where racism against white people is apparently the acceptable thing to do. In the US city of Boston, tone-deaf Mayor Michelle Wu was yesterday caught sending out invites to a Christmas party that excluded white council workers. Closer to home, earlier this year, a London theatre saw no problem holding what they called a blackout performance, strictly for a black-identifying audience. And then today, it was revealed that even our financial institutions are riddled with this new kind of fashionable discrimination. Amanda Blanc, ironically named, presumably, the chief executive of insurance firm Aviva, told stunned MPs in Parliament that all senior white male recruits had to be personally signed off by her as part of a diversity drive to stamp out sexism in the financial services industry. We can take a look and a listen.
There is no non-diverse hire at Aviva without it being signed off by me and the Chief People Officer. Not because I don't trust my team, but because I want to make sure that the process followed for that recruitment has been diverse, has been properly done, and it's not just a phone call to a mate to say, would you like a job, and pop up and we'll fix it up for you. So there's a lot of work that has been done.
I'm sorry, but who the hell scrolls down Go Compare looking to insure their motor and considers anything other than the price in the terms of the policy. Then again, fat cats like Amanda Blanc, who earns an eye-watering £5.5 million a year, reportedly, surely knows the public best. It's funny, because I'm actually insured with Aviva, and I don't seem to remember her caring about accepting my white money. But let's be clear, OK? These aren't just one-off stories of a few wacky organisations being a little bit silly. This is happening all over. An official inquiry slammed the RAF earlier this year for unlawfully discriminating against white men in a recruitment drive. In their holier-than-thou bid to appear diverse, Air Force bosses apologised for practising positive discrimination instead. And at the BBC, I mean, where else, Radio 5 Live presenter Nihal Arthaneka said that working in a, quote, overwhelmingly white workplace was affecting his mental health. That is, despite the Beeb's commitment to at least 20% black, Asian and minority ethnic staff, even though that demographic accounts for around 18% of the English and Welsh population. Meanwhile, in education, it's white working-class pupils, especially boys, who are actually the most in need of a leg up at the moment. It's them who are the worst-performing demographic in British schools. And a report from Parliament's Education Committee in 2021 concluded that white working-class kids had been failed by decades of neglect. And that's not a shock when you consider that two top private schools, Dulwich College in South London and Winchester College in Hampshire, reportedly turned down a £1 million gift from the philanthropist Sir Brian Thwaites to help underprivileged white boys get a top education over fears that that would break equality laws. But check your white privilege, boys and girls. And even if you don't, you'll eventually get found out by the CEO at Aviva, Amanda Blanc. Isn't it ironic that the very people who claim to be anti-racist are the ones looking to segregate people based on race? But let's get the thoughts now of my top panel this evening. Is Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson, we've got Conservative peer Lord Bailey, and we have got former Labour aide Stella Chantakidou. Alison, I'll start with you. You've got strong views on this. Do you think that anti-white racism exists, and is it time to push back?
It definitely exists, and it is the fact, Patrick, that the only group now you're safe discriminating against is white blokes, basically. Just watching that clip of Amanda Blanc, the CEO of Aviva, I'm thinking we're in very dodgy legal territory. I'm not sure she's even allowed to say that, but she's let the cat out of the bag. Let me tell you one small story. My son, white, obviously, has just graduated this year. I was talking to a city CEO, very senior in a bank, and they said, your son is well-educated, nicely presented, clearly able, and he's white. And he said he would be at the bottom of any list of people we were trying to recruit. Wow. And he also said that the diversity hires in their firm were often semi-literate, innumerate. This is in a bank, OK? So what we're talking about is this diversity, equality and inclusion, which is now dominating so many of the institutions, clearly guiding the thinking of Amanda Blanc. I think it's absolutely, not only is it absolutely disgraceful, Patrick, in China and India and our competitors, you are not seeing people saying, let's get people in who look like this or talk like this. They are recruiting the best people. So this is going to end a race to the bottom where our country is no longer competitive.
Well, it's like a race to the bottom,
race
to
the bottom, yeah.
Sean, your views on this?
I think there's three things to say. I think, firstly, this sets up some animosity in the future, because now if you're a white CEO or you're a white recruiter and you start to think, well, hold on a second, it's become a race that's going to eliminate me, maybe this is my chance to push back on the sly, to do something differently. The real problem, if you're a black person, it sets up the idea that you're only here because somebody else wants you to hear. You're not up to the job, you're not good enough. And that means you'll have a team that'll avoid working with you, you'll have a team that thinks, well, they'll hold me back, so I just need to park there and be polite, but never really work with them. And that can be a real problem, because that affects your mental health. Because as a black person, you start to ask yourself, hold on, is it me or is it them? And the deeper piece is this. If you really want to help black people, what you need to do is positively support them, not segregate them, not eliminate people, because eliminating people, that pendulum of it's popular to attack white people, and at some point it will swing back. And people start to point fingers to these incidents. They'll say, well, you used to block black people with white people, now it's your turn to block black people. I think it could be a real problem. And really what it's about virtue signalling. If you look at businesses, particularly in America, such as Disney, who virtue signalled, it affected their bottom line. If I was a shareholder, I'd start to ask questions about what is this going to do to our business.
Stella, do you think it's OK to have a situation where there's things like a Christmas party and it's only for non-white people?
No, obviously not. I think this is ridiculous. But I don't think this is the same situation here. I think the context is completely different. I find it very interesting, Alison, that you are bringing up India and China as an example, because I think that these are countries where you do see a lot more racism than in the UK. I do think that if you were black, for example, in India or China, you would have a problem going up the ladder in a similar company like Aviva. I do think that the reason why Amanda, I think that the comments are unfortunate. It's an unfortunate comment, the way she phrased it. But you need to look at the context. You're talking about the insurance industry in the UK. What she's referring to is the fact that there needs to be due process. Specifically, what she said is you can't have one person calling up a mate saying, hey, I just got laid off, I need a new job, do you have something? Which is the way.
That's how she got her job.
Which is the way things used to happen in the insurance industry.
That's absolutely true.
They've had the kick up the butt, and they've needed to change things. And this is why there is an inquiry as well. This is why there is a parliamentary inquiry into sexism in the city.
But the old boy network, give Tarquin a job, that was bad. But what we are talking about here, she is very specifically suggesting that if a white guy gets through to the shortlist for senior position, she will be looking at him through a prism of diversity, which to me suggests that she will allegedly be biased against him.
So she's not saying she will block him. She will check that there was due process. That's what she's saying.
Could we just literally reverse that, a bit like I did at the top of my monologue there, and go, right, let's just imagine I was the boss of something. I was a terrifying thought to begin with. But if I was the boss of something, and then I came out and said, right, every single, like, black employee or whatever, I personally sign off on that. I mean, that's racist, isn't it?
Yes, you are right. That would be racism because in the historical context of the UK, there has been racism against black people more than there has been in the city of London against white people. I do agree someone's race, whether it's white or black, must not be a consideration, but that's not what Amanda was saying here.
Look, the deeper thing for me is twofold. Here's the thing. So I have two children at home who are both mixed race. Where do they stand in this little dilemma? It'd be interesting to know. But the real thing I'm talking about, when people at the top, and she is at the top, make statements like this, down the bottom, it generates real animosity. I live in a very big white working class area in Romford. I am one of them because I'm working class. This lady's just separated me out. They're like, well, you have something I don't, Sean. And the boys I interact with, the boys I grew up with, the boys I did army cadets, we went to school with, we are one and the same because we're working class, poor people who struggled. She has made me different to them that I don't appreciate.
Yeah, Alison, on the working class white boys issue, right, I feel very, very strongly about this. The idea that schools, good schools, would turn down a £1 million grant to help the most, according to the current stats, disadvantaged group of kids in school at the moment. I find that astonishing, and I just don't think that would happen any other way round.
No, I don't think it would. If they'd offered something for, you know, bringing on ethnic minority pupils, it's just true. It's just true that white working class boys do the worst, and some, in fact, greatly to the credit of the British education system, some of the highest performing children are of Chinese background and of Indian background. The thing I'd like to say, Patrick, is that 82% of population in England and Wales is white British, right? They pay for a lot of the stuff. Their taxes pay for a lot of the stuff. They are the consumers. If you give the majority white British population the idea that their kids are not going to be offered the same places at university. We're seeing a brain drain from this country. We're seeing white kids who can't get into the best universities going to the United States. So there's a huge amount of discrimination. I think, I agree with Sean, I think this could lead to extreme ill feeling, you know, a real sense of who do you think you are, you know? White people are still paying for this vast majority of this country.
Stella, do you think that companies should be able to advertise jobs that white people can't apply apply for?
No, absolutely not. I'm going to shock you there, Patrick. I don't believe in affirmative action for universities or for places. I think what we need to be doing is we need to make sure that there is no cronyism on any kind of characteristic. People should get their jobs and their universities based on merit.
And look, if you want to help people from the black community, it's about positive support. It's about what is the blockages to a black person moving forward. Do they have the same access to education? Have you the processes that deal with racism? Because if it's just somebody's opinion, she effectively replaced the old boy network with her new network.
Yeah.
That will not pay dividends down the line.
No, it's absolutely spot on. It's absolutely spot on. And then there'll end up being some kind of pushback to that. I just really refuse to see how it creates anything like a harmonious society when you're constantly pigeonholing people and using characteristics which none of us have got any control over. None of us have got any control whatsoever about our genetics and when we're born and what colour we are, etc., etc. You know, why are you're almost then assigned something at birth, aren't you? But anyway, there we go, still to come. As the search for missing mother Gaynor Lord intensifies and Nicola Bulley detectives have been drafted in to assist, I will be joined by the former Hunted star undercover police detective top cop Peter Blexley, who will hopefully be able to shed a little bit more light on this mystery. Incredibly intriguing situation, of course, and it is gripping the nation at the moment. But up next, in tonight's first head-to-head, Tory MP and One Nation caucus member Richard Graham goes up against author and political commentator Paul Connew to ask if the Tories should just cut their losses now. We've got another by-election coming up, the Conservatives have. Should they just do a general election? Anyway, also, how would you like to win £10,000 in cash, brand new tech and shopping vouchers just in time for Christmas? Well, you could be the winner of our very first Great British giveaway. Here's all the details. Now you can make those prizes yours.
This week, we're launching the Great British Giveaway, your chance to grab some amazing prizes and start your new year the right way. You could win an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Imagine having all of that extra cash in your bank account. We'll also bring you bang up to date with the very latest iPhone 15 Pro Max. And we'll give you £500 worth of shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. For your chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Right, OK, so up next, do we need to be put out of our misery? Do we have a general election now, or actually the Tories still got time to pull it round? That's coming your way. We're going to have a big head-to-head on that. Why? Well, because it looks like there's a by-election coming up, and do the Tories just continue to lose them? I'll see you in a tick.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, very shortly, former Met Police Detective Peter Bleksley is going to take us through the latest on this disappearance of missing mum, Gaynor Lord. Really is a case that's gripping the nation at the moment. Some very chilling echoes, I think, of that Nicola Bulley case. Hopefully there is a better outcome there. But now it's time for the head-to-head. Well, Rishi Sunak is potentially faced with another by-election headache after Blackpool MP Scott Benton was embroiled in a lobbying scandal, allegedly. The Red Wall MP has been recommended for 35-day suspension by Parliament. A sting operation from The Times reportedly showed Benton offering to lobby ministers on behalf of the gambling industry and leak a confidential policy document for up to £4,000 a month. Well, recently, the Tories lost big majorities in Tamworth and Mid-Bedfordshire, and Benton's seat in Blackpool South was won by just a 3,700 vote majority. So good luck holding on to that one, Tories. But do the Conservatives need to rip the plaster off and get this show on the road? So tonight I'm asking, should we just have a general election now? Let me know your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.com. You can tweet me at gbnews. While you're there, go and take part in our poll. I'll bring you the results very, very shortly. Well, to debate this, I'm now joined by Conservative MP Richard Graham and political commentator and former editor of the Sunday Mirror, Paul Connew. Both of you, thank you very, very much. Great to have you on the show. Richard, I will start with you. I mean, logic would say that we should just have a general election, but would that be a bit like a turkey voting for Christmas?
I don't think there's any logic that says we should have a general election, Patrick. In fact, I mean, general election is due by the end of January 2025, so we've got a long time to go. This government's got a lot to do, and we're getting on with doing it. When I go out and knock on doors, the last thing anyone says to me is, let's have some more uncertainty, let's have a general election tomorrow. So that's not on the cards, and it won't happen. Of course, there are challenges that all governments have to deal with, and the occasional by-election when someone gets the rules badly wrong is part of what governments have to deal with. But that's got nothing to do with having a general election. So no, I don't think the country wants it. I don't think the country needs it, and it's not going to happen. OK,
Paul, over to you now, just to respond to that.
I think the country deserves one, and the polls suggest the public actually want one. Although I'm not holding my breath for them getting it. Although I'm told that there are various advisors talking to Rishi Sunak, and some advising go early, spring one in the spring, but others saying go long, stick it out till October, November. I can't really see how you could justify going through to 2025, to January then, because I think the idea of an election campaign hitting across Christmas next year would actually be pushing it rather with the public patience.
I suppose one of the issues, Richard, is that there's been a few negative by-election results recently for the Conservatives, haven't there, to say the least? Some massive, massive turnovers and swings. If this is another one of them, is it just another nail in Rishi Sunak's coffin?
Yeah, well, governments traditionally, particularly when they're in their sort of fourth term, don't do very well in by-elections. We know that. That's happened to all parties over history. And so if there were a by-election, which is not yet decided or determined, but if there was, I'm sure it would be a tough one, no doubt about that. But that isn't really the point. A general election is a much bigger thing for the whole country. It affects all parts of the United Kingdom. And you don't charge into that just because you've had a couple, or rather more than a couple, of bad by-election results. That doesn't justify at all putting the country through a general election. And of course, it's absolutely understandable that the opposition spend their whole time calling for a general election. But the truth is, and I think this is where the media has an important role to play, is that the time has come for the country to ask Labour to do a little bit more than just calling for a general election, and actually ask them what their policies on difficult issues might be.
Well, I actually agree with you on that. And Paul, I was going to ask, is this actually be careful what you wish for the Labour Party? Because, I mean, he'd have to come up with a manifesto with some actual policies that might actually have to be costed. He might actually have to tell us what he thinks.
Well, some of my Labour contacts suggest that they should go. Labour would welcome going along with it because I think it's going to get worse for the Tories. But, I mean, Richard, I think, is putting a bit of a gloss on the recent pattern of by-election results. And Rishi Sunak must be contemplating our leading psephologist, Professor John Curtis's recent prediction that on the current patterns, the Tory party could end up with as little as 135 seats. He puts it at, they'd be lucky to get 200 in a by-election, which puts you in a general election, which puts you right back into the sort of Tony Blair landslide victory scale. It's fascinating, but frankly, the turmoil around the Tory party at the moment, if Armando Iannucci had written this as an episode of The Thick of It, you wouldn't believe it. It's beyond satire.
OK, all right, Richard, I do think that maybe you guys should welcome a general election purely because, for that same reason, Keir Starmer would then have to tell the public what he actually stands for, what he actually thinks, and that would give you something to pick apart, wouldn't it?
Well, look, I think, that is going to be the challenge for the Labour Party, is actually trying to work out what they do stand for. I mean, take what happened last week, for example. If you listened to the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, you would have believed that the whole Tory party was on the point of implosion during the second reading of the Rwanda Safety Bill. In fact, not a single Tory MP voted against it, and Labour were, once again, humiliated by a significant vote in favour of a policy that is trying to address a major global issue, which is an increasing amount of migration from Africa and the Middle East. And at no stage during that debate, to be honest and objectively, did anyone hear what the Labour policy was. My guess is that actually, if this works, and I think there's a good chance that it may well do, if it does work, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Labour actually, later on, one day, if they ever become the government, would adopt the same policy and just carry it on quietly. In the same way that they criticised universal credit and have never yet said that actually they would keep it going, but they know that it has been the most successful welfare scheme in Western Europe, and it worked brilliantly during the pandemic. But again, these are all issues that need to be prized out from my point of view. We are actually pretty united. The divisions have been wildly exaggerated, and we're going to get on with the job.
Paul, final word to you. Do you buy that?
I don't buy that. I think the divisions are very clear there, and I think, if anything at all, Rishi Sunak's only got a breathing space in the new year. I think the whole Rwanda debate is going to flare up again, and it's also going to get bogged down in the Lords too and legal challenges. I think the public are now wising up. No matter what their concerns are over migration, legal and illegal, the fact is that they're realising that Rwanda is is basically tokenism. It's never going to be a serious policy. It's all about trying to placate the hard right.
Labour have got to come up with something, though. This is the thing. It's, you know, there is that argument, but then, you know, there is also the very reasonable argument, which is, you know, Labour saying we'll smash the gangs. Well, that's like, well, get Brexit done, isn't it? As Brexit means Brexit. Smash the gangs. That's the kind of territory we're in here, isn't it? But look, Charles, we could talk about this all evening. I'm very, very grateful.
The only slogan at the moment is that Keir Starmer really needs. It's time for a change. I think that is the public mood, and that will be the deciding factor in selection.
Yeah, or the words together stronger, or one of those slogans that people come up with. Anyway, look, Charles, thank you very, very much. Really, really enjoyed this. Really informative stuff. I hope to speak to you both again very, very soon. Conservative MP Richard Graham there, political commentator, former editor at the Sunday Mirror, Paul Connew. Well, look, who do you agree with? OK, as Rishi Sunak faces another potential by-election, should we just have a general election now? Chris on Twitter says no, because Labour would win, and it will be 4 years of chaos. I hate to break it to you, Chris, it could be 5. But there we go. The Tories need to get rid of Sunak, replace him with Boris or Nigel, and only then would they win an election. Darren on Twitter says the vast majority of the electorate vote either Tory or Labour, yeah. But if a general election were to be held tomorrow, it would be hard to differentiate between the two parties. It's a cracking point, that, Darren. Absolutely cracking point. All the parties are the same. Maybe not all, but anyway, Sean on Twitter says, instead of endless by-elections or another Tory leadership contest, let's just bring the election forward and do it now. We need change. You know, I genuinely can see all sides of this. I normally like to have quite strong views, but I really can see it in the round on this one. Your verdict is in, though. Here we go. 60% of you agree that we should just have a general election. 40% of you say that we should not. So relatively split there, but thank you very much for everyone who's taken part. Coming up, as Reform UK surge ahead of the Liberal Democrats in the latest polls, could Nigel Farage lead them to a stunning success at the ballot box? Former Tory Minister Anne Widdecombe rejoined Reform earlier this year. She will be with us soon. She's also going to be talking about whether or not it's too easy to cancel Christmas after a whole Christmas tree celebration was put on hold because of health and safety fears. But next, with the search for the missing Norwich mother of 3 Gaynor Lord heading into its 2nd week, and Nicola Bulley cops being rushed in to help the investigation. Former Hunted star and undercover police detective Peter Blexley is live in the studio with me to hopefully shed a little bit more light on the disappearance that has gripped the nation. He's next. I'll see you shortly.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious?
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, the search for the missing Norwich mother Gaynor Lord continues tonight, with specialist dive teams scouring the River Wensum after the police said that there is a high probability that the 55-year-old went into the water. The mother of three has been missing since last Friday, when she left her job at a department store early before her belongings were found scattered in a park 1 mile away. At a press conference earlier today, officers from Norfolk Constabulary addressed her erratic behaviour in the hours before she went missing. Watch and listen.
This behaviour is out of character. We can't explain some of her behaviour that day, and we're working really closely with the family, with friends, with anybody else that we know that may have had contact with her in recent days and weeks to try and understand why this may have happened. Nobody knows why she's done what she's done, and we will just have to work and see if we can find it out.
But that hasn't stopped armchair detectives from sharing wild speculation online, which Miss Lord's family have slammed as unhelpful. Theories currently doing the rounds, of course, include a serial killer on the loose who murdered Nicola Bulley, all of this kind of, really crazy stuff. Of course, Nicola Bulley's body was found in the River Wye after she went missing in January. Well, look, I am joined now by former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley. And Peter, we've obviously got some CCTV clips we're going to play over this while you talk us through certain bits and bobs. But what's your take on what's going on right now? I think overarching subject for me is, in this day and age, I find it increasingly difficult to see how people can just go missing, really. What do you gather from what we know so far?
Well, people do go missing, and sadly, some of them are never found. Some go missing of their own accord, others at the hands of others, and then, of course, some people, like Nicola Bulley, accidentally falls into a river, as the coroner's inquest ruled. And, of course, we cannot avoid certain similarities between Nicola Bulley's disappearance and Gaynor Lord's disappearance, primarily what the police are saying about they believe that Gaynor's gone into the water. The Lancashire police said that was their working hypothesis with Nicola Bulley, and of course some weeks later when her body was found, that was borne out to be true.
Yeah, so the police mentioned erratic behaviour. They also released a kind of series of CCTV footage as well. What do you make of what we've seen so far, then?
Well, at one point, Gaynor is really in a hurry to get somewhere because we see a vehicle, which I believe is a Mini, slam the brakes on very, very quickly in order to avoid colliding with her. So that's pretty kind of risky behaviour. And another clip that's been released more recently, we see Gaynor looking to her right, almost as if she's over her shoulder, looking up at something. I would want boots on the ground saying, what was she looking at? Is there a poster there? Is there something else of relevance? And then, of course, there's the half hour or so that Gaynor spent in the Cathedral. Now, places of worship are often places where people go for some solace, some contemplation, some prayer, perhaps to meet someone. If I was leading the investigation, would want to know why she was there and did she meet anyone?
No, indeed. And then we have this supposed witness who is saying that they saw a woman in a yoga pose by the water. There was, some belongings laid out there as well. That's another dimension to this, isn't it?
Yes, it is indeed, and I'm sure there is some rampant speculation already about those items. I would like to know the exact position in which those items were laid out, and then as a detective you might be able to make some kind of more informed decision as to why they may have been laid out, if indeed there was some rhyme or reason to that. Striking a yoga pose on a pretty chilly Friday in December in the dark is not normal. And talking of the dark, of course, the police have got very few daylight hours during which to search the river.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I think if the Nicola Bulley case taught me anything, and a lot of people to me, is clearly how difficult it is to search a body of water.
Yes.
And that potentially is what they're up against now, isn't it?
Indeed, and rivers, lakes, streams, canals, and of course seas and oceans can often be very slow to give up their secrets. The visibility at this time of the year, with the water that dark and the lack of daylight hours, is incredibly challenging. They will, of course, be using sonar and the like to try and get some kind of visibility down there, but it's going to be very, very challenging. And, of course, they're applying a lot of resources to this search.
They are. Some marked contrasts, I would say, in this case, in the Nicola Bulley case. I think the police, so far anyway, being a lot less forthcoming with potentially overly personal information. Do you think lessons have been learnt there?
Undoubtedly. There was, of course, an inquiry into how Lancashire police handled Nicola Bulley's information.
Things, didn't they, in the previous case?
They
a lot
did.
Of people thought, yeah.
They did. At some point, they started off by saying, don't speculate at one press conference, and then the officer giving that conference did nothing other than go on to speculate herself. And, of course, the release of the information in regards to the alcohol issue and perimenopause issues, deeply personal information which need not have been released if only the police in the very early stages has said there's personal information, that's why she's vulnerable, we're not going to detail what those are. Clearly, Suffolk police here have learned some lessons from the Nicola Bulley case. In fact, we heard today that officers from the Nicola Bulley investigation are assisting Suffolk. I think they've got their handling of the information to the media so far pretty good. We shall have to wait and see.
Yeah, we will have to wait and see. Look, Peter, thank you very, very much. It's great to have you on the show and have your insight and your expertise. That was former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley there. I just want to say as well that our thoughts here go out to anybody who is connected with Gaynor Lord, and we do hope for the best possible outcome to this. But if you do have any information that might help the police in their search for Gaynor, then please contact Norfolk Police on 101, quoting incident number 427. So that's Norfolk Police 101, quoting incident number 427. If any of those CCTV images or whatever has jogged your memory on anything, then please do get in touch. But coming up, as the SNP calls for limitless migration in independent Scotland, I asked my panel of top pundits what their limit on net migration would be. I want to put a number on it. I want to hear what they have to say. I also want to know what your number is as well. gbviews@gbnews.com. But next, Nigel Farage, obviously, he's back into the political conversation now, isn't he? Decent display in the army celeb jungle. Will he help Reform UK to topple the Tories? We're seeing the polls are interesting at the moment. Former Tory minister and current Reform UK member Anne Widdecombe beams in live for her unrivalled political insight, but also as well, a Christmas tree has been cancelled. Why? For allegedly posing a health and safety risk. It comes in a long line, I think, of things cancelling Christmas. Why are we doing that in a Christian country? I'll see you in 3.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, so apparently the SNP plans to introduce limitless migration to Scotland soon. Between that, the Gazan refugees and all of the XL bullies, I tell you what, Scotland's going to be, well, it's the place to be, isn't it? But first, it's time for former Tory Minister Anne Widdecombe. Now, lots to get through tonight with Anne. We start with Nigel Farage. He's catapulted himself back into the headlines after reaching the final of I'm a Celeb last weekend before delivering a barnstorming monologue on immigration in a high-profile exit interview. There we go. So, could a return to frontline politics now be on the cards for the Brexit broker? Well, as the honorary president of Reform UK, who have surged ahead of the Liberal Democrats, who are at 11% in recent polling, it can't be ruled out. But, Anne, I want to know whether or not you're of the view that Nigel could actually lead the party to electoral success. What's going on there?
Well, it can be done if you just look at our place in the polls. At the beginning of the year, we only had a few percent. Now we're regularly getting double figures. One poll even had us as high as 12%. So obviously people are turning to us because they don't like what the two major parties are offering. And Nigel is charismatic and people follow him, as was proven with those Brexit European elections. People will follow him as long as Reform continues to do what Reform set out to do, which is to talk common sense. And that is what people want to hear. There's no common sense coming out of the Tories at the moment, none at all, and there's none from Labour.
It's a massive ask, though, Anne, isn't it, with our current voting system? You know, a lot of people, as much as they may like Nigel Farage, they think it is absolute, complete and utter cloud cuckoo land to suggest that Reform or him could actually get anywhere near winning an election.
Well, the fact is that it can only happen if people have the courage of their convictions. You know, I mean, I lost count of the number of people who said to me last time, oh, you know, I'd like to vote for the Brexit Party, but I'm afraid of Corbyn. Well, I don't actually think people are afraid of Starmer. They should be, but they're not. And so I think, you know, people may, if they're going to, they may decide this is the moment. As I've said to everybody, you know, if you want more of the same, vote for more of the same. If you want real change, real common sense, vote Reform.
Yeah, I do wonder if people are now just actually sick of the status quo. I mean, I know they've been saying that for a while, but I wonder whether now that has actually happened. But look, I'm very keen to get your views on this because Christmas is fast approaching, and many Brits are looking forward to festive markets, celebrations. but they may be left a little bit disappointed. A flurry of cancellations across the nation. Manchester, Sheffield and Lincoln have all seen Christmas light switch-ons and festive markets cancelled due to quotes-unquote safety concerns. A further 6 cities, including Brighton, well, they've had cancellations due to budgets. Oh, we recently had a situation as well where I think a Christmas tree was deemed to be going against health and safety. Surely it can't be that difficult to secure a Christmas tree. But Anne, is the traditional British Christmas becoming a thing of the past? Is it under siege?
Oh, yes, I think it is. I mean, if you look at displays in shop windows, they're all display winter scenes, but they don't display a crib, they don't display the nativity scene. And certainly, of course, you can secure a Christmas tree. It's absolutely wet to suggest that a Christmas tree could pose a danger to health and safety. And today, I tried to get some party poppers in WH Smith, and I was informed that I couldn't do that because they were classified as explosives.
Oh, my God, seriously?
I got them somewhere else, but seriously, that was what I was told in WH Smith, that they were explosives.
I do like the idea that someone will have not heard what you were in there asking for, right? And they've just seen, as far as they're concerned, Anne Widdecombe demanding to be sold explosives from someone at WH Smith. That's a headline if ever I've seen one. But you know, we are a Christian country. Now, I know that a lot of the fanfare that goes on around Christmas now is not that Christian necessarily. It's more of just a holiday in general, really. But are you concerned that in a Christian country we are losing that love or that public celebration of Christmas?
Well, we are losing it, but it's up to Christians to reverse that situation. It's not up to anybody else, not up to the government, it's not up to local councils, it's up to Christians to reverse that. And if they make their voice heard and say, you know, we do actually want to remember what Christmas is about, which is actually the dawn of redemption, which I suspect a lot of people have clean forgotten, then, you know, we have to make our voice heard. And if we don't, then we can't complain.
No, indeed. And it annoys me that councils especially just seem like they'll cancel it like that. But, you know, and they'll make up some cock and bull story about health and safety. What would your message to these councils be right across the country, Anne?
Well, my message would be more to their voters, those who vote for these councils, and to say, just remember, you know, when May comes, or whenever it may be that you're next voting in a council election, just remember the line they took at Christmas.
Yeah, strong words. Anne, thank you very much. Anne Widdecombe there, the incredible, formidable Anne Widdecombe. Now, coming up, as Mark Drakeford leaves Wales in quite a sorry state and a Labour-run council tries to cancel the great British explorer Captain James Cook, yeah, seriously, can we actually really trust the Labour Party to govern the nation? Or are they just going to end up getting bogged down in all of this stuff and renaming road signs, etc.? What would the reality underneath a Labour government actually be? But next, as the SNP threatens Scotland with limitless migration, I pinned down the panel on the figures that they would find acceptable for net migration in the UK, OK? So I've made them give me a firm, rigid number. I want to know what yours is as well. Get in touch, gbviews@gnews.com. Some people so far are going for net zero migration, so a firm zero. Some people are willing to accept around 100,000, but it's fascinating, isn't it, when you see what the latest from the Conservatives is, which is that they'll accept somewhere in the region of 400,000. Well, if they miss that by the extent to which they've missed their current target, which was somewhere in the region of 200,000, then we'll end up having net migration over 1 million every single year. So that is actually quite astonishing. So when we come back, I want to hear from you, and we'll be hearing from our panel, pinning you down exactly on what figure you want for net migration. And I will have all of tomorrow's newspapers today in the liveliest paper review you will get anywhere on telly. All that coming away and much, much more before 11. Don't move. See you in a tick.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, it's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. It's going to be breezy, increasingly so across northern parts of the UK over the next 24 hours. Patchy cloud carried in on that breeze, but with lighter winds and clearer spells further south, we're going to see a chilly night. Now, high pressure is building in from the south, but that's not going to lead to entirely fine conditions across the UK because we're going to continue to see a strong westerly breeze. In fact, it's going to increase over the next few days. And during the early hours of Friday, it will bring some areas of cloud, especially across northern parts of the UK. So with the cloud and the breeze increasing in the north, generally frost-free. Further south, lighter winds and some clear spells will lead to a few fog patches by dawn and temperatures close to, if not a touch below freezing. So a chilly, but for many, bright start across England and Wales, eastern Scotland as well. However, through the afternoon, we're going to see the cloud thicken once again across northern and western parts of the country. Spells of rain increasing as well over western hills. It stays bright towards the east and southeast of England, 8 or 9 Celsius here, whilst despite the cloud further west, we'll see mild air carried through, and that will continue into the start of the weekend. A very mild start to Saturday. A lot of cloud, though, and an increasingly strong wind. Gales for northwestern Scotland, heavy rain for the northwest Highlands, and that's really going to mount up through Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Drier further south.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. and this is Patrick Christys Tonight.
Can independent Scotland have a cap on immigration?
No. Unlimited immigration to Scotland, everybody. 1 in 4 Indian and Bangladeshi students are dropping out of university in Britain. Is it time now for a fixed annual cap on immigration? And swordsmith extraordinaire Penny Mordaunt has exposed what a Labour-run country would really look like.
It's a good job, Mr. Speaker, the Nativity didn't take place in Labour-run Wales. The 3 wise men would have arrived post-Epiphany due to the blanket 20-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Is this proof that Keir Starmer shouldn't be allowed within 100 miles of Downing Street? Plus, British men are the first to get the male contraceptive pill. Blokes, would you be happy turning your swimmers off? Ladies, will you be trusting him to actually take it? Is there a double standard when it comes to contraception? And is Kate the victim of a pushy mum?
Because you've always had your sights on someone else for me. Come on. You've always loved the idea of me and William together.
Not surprised she's going to be Queen one day. It's a great thing for a mum to do. But anyway, that's the latest episode of The Crown. I'll have all of tomorrow's front pages today in the liveliest paper review you will get anywhere on the telly. Here to get busy on the sofa, top columnist Alison Pearson, our Lord Sean Bailey and fiery Stella Chantakidou. This is Patrick Christys Tonight. Let's do this. Email me, what's your cap on immigration? I want you to put a number on it. I've made my panel do it, so it's your turn now. gbviews@gbnews.com. I'll see you after the headlines, but just see if you can guess what happens next here.
The headlines from the GB newsroom. Police are saying there are some indications why a woman in Norwich may have left her work a little earlier than usual on the day she went missing. Gaynor Lord was last spotted on CCTV cameras on Friday afternoon, and Norfolk Constabulary say it is likely, they believe, the 55-year-old may have entered the nearby river. The police force says specialist divers are now working in extraordinarily challenging conditions, and it will take a couple of days or longer to complete their search.
So there's a number of lines of inquiry that we are pursuing, but at the moment everything that we know is pointing to a high probability that Gaynor went into the water, and that would be from the CCTV, from the very limited witnesses that we've got available to us at the moment, and other lines of inquiry that we're pursuing about Gaynor's behaviour in the lead up to her disappearance. So at the moment the river is a really key factor for us. Now, it's not to say that other specialist police teams aren't working on other lines of inquiry, because they are, but at the moment you're seeing that intensive effort around the searching of the water and the parks around and some of the other land around this area.
Meanwhile, a missing British boy who's believed to have disappeared 6 years ago has been found in France, Greater Manchester Police say. The boy, who was spotted in Toulouse yesterday morning, is now a teenager but was just 11 years old when he went missing after leaving the UK to go on a holiday to Spain. The force said it's now in touch with the French authorities to put safeguarding measures in place. The Bank of England held the interest rate at 5.25% today for the third time in a row. At Parliament's Treasury Committee meeting last month, the bank's governor said the threat of UK inflation is being underestimated. 2 nurses from Blackpool in Lancashire are facing prison sentences after they were found guilty of illegally sedating their patients. 54-year-old Catherine Hudson had been given 7 years and 2 months for drugging patients at Blackpool's Victoria Hospital between 2017 and 2018. Her 48-year-old colleague, Charlotte Wilmot, was found guilty of encouraging Hudson to drug a patient and sentenced to 3 years behind bars. And South Wales Police are saying a body has been found following an explosion on an industrial estate in South Wales. Searches were carried out at the site yesterday after one person was unaccounted for. Formal identification has not yet taken place. Officers, though, are supporting the family of a person who is reported missing. Police are saying there are no other reports of serious injuries. The force said they'd now begin investigating the cause of the explosion and the resulting fire. And finally, Rebecca Welch will make history as the first woman to ever referee a Premier League match later this month. The 40-year-old will take charge of the Fulham-Burnley game on December the 23rd. She began refereeing in 2010 and in January became the first woman to officiate at a men's championship game. Meanwhile, Sam Allison will also take charge of a top-flight match on Boxing Day, making him the Premier League's first black referee for 15 years. That's the news from GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Heck of a lot to get through this hour. We start with this. Is it time to put a hard, fixed cap on immigration? Today, it emerged that 1 in 4 students from India and Bangladesh apparently drop out of their university course. So come over here, bring your dependents, then just drop out and crack on with your life. Up in Scotland, they've gone full tonto on immigration. Scottish National Party politician Kirsty Blackman says that she wants limitless people every year.
Right, the whole idea, the whole trying to get, win votes on this only works if you start from the premise that immigration is a bad thing and that we shouldn't have it and that we need to reduce it and that we need to stop people coming here.
Would an independent Scotland have a cap on immigration?
No.
OK, all right. Is it any wonder that Humza Yousaf wants to create a new tax ban for higher earners? He's reportedly thinking of making anyone on more than around 75k put their hand in their pocket to fill a £1.5 billion black hole in his budget. I wonder why there's such a huge hole there, Mr Yousaf. But presumably they could just tax all the Gazan refugees he wants to bring in, or the XL Bulley owners. Sadiq Khan in London has said that plans to cut immigration would cause a massive recruitment crisis. Clearly, what he needs to do is hang around outside universities and wait for all of those Indian and Bangladeshi students to drop out of their courses after a week and offer them a job at Pret-a-Manger. There are plans at the moment to make foreign students hit certain grades, otherwise they won't be allowed to stay, which I think is a step in the right direction. But James Cleverly has essentially said the government is now working at a net migration target of somewhere in the region of 400,000. Well, given the track record of those targets being wildly wrong, it'll probably come in at about 2.5 million. But there's a story that flew under the radar, actually, and I think this will interest you. So Serco is a company that helps the government find and run migrant hotels in the UK, amongst other things, and it's just expanded across Europe. So pockets full of taxpayers' cash because of the migrant crisis, Serco have just spent £40 million buying an asylum seeker accommodation company in Germany. They see the German market as somewhere that's about to boom. No doubt that'll be heading our way soon. Now, according to the FT, Serco is expecting acquisitions and strong demand for immigration and defence services to push revenue up 7% to £4.8 billion in the current financial year. Underlying operating profits are projected to rise 3% to, hold on to your hats here, 245 million quid. Operating profits of that. I mean, it will be a relief to us, won't it, that the migrant crisis has more than offset the loss that those poor people at Serco suffered during the COVID pandemic. It just doesn't seem to me like those in the know think that anything is really going to be done about immigration, legal or illegal. So, is it time for a fixed cap? And if so, what should that cap be? To respond to this now and answer that question, I'm joined by Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson, Conservative peer Lord Sean Bailey and former Labour aide Stella Tantakidou. Alison, I will start with you. I'll be honest with you, we had an office sweepstake and we thought you'd go for zero, but you've not. What is your number?
I'm going to open the bidding. OK, I've got a reason for this. So last year, 745,000 immigration. Totally mad, unsustainable, putting huge pressure on public services. So I'm going to go in at 200,000, which is what it was roughly when David Cameron came to government as Prime Minister. And the reasoning there, Patrick, is that I actually think it should be running at 100,000 or 50,000. But because the government hasn't trained enough of our own doctors, our own nurses, our own care home workers, our own dentists, our own midwives, we couldn't just go to zero. We couldn't, because we are so reliant. We have been training so few of our own kids as doctors. There's a huge lack of people for certain jobs. So you'd have to phase it in. I'm quite attracted to the Richard Tice's Reform Party. They're saying
it's net zero.
Net zero immigration, one out, one in. And the SDP party, they want to have a pause on mass immigration for a generation, not because they're racist or opposed to immigrants, it's because they want to give the people who've come here, the millions of people who've come here, time to settle in and integrate. Because what we are facing is a crisis, too many people, not enough time to integrate.
So you're going 200,000?
200,000 with a view to coming down in a couple of years.
All right, Alison Pearson there on 200,000. Oh, there we go. So there we are. 200,000. You can't go back on that now. It's your picture next to it and the number. So there we are. Lord Sean Bailey, what's your number?
I'm also going to join. I'm going to go 200,000, 210, around there. But I tell you why. You cannot run a decent country if you cannot plan. You have to have some idea of how many schools, how many doctors, and also you can't have a safe world order if you just have mass immigration everywhere. We always talk about how proud we are that the NHS is run by people from all over the world. What we never talk about is the fact that we devastated their health service and we've taken the brain drain from them. And these are countries that need their best to do their best. So we should actually be a little bit ashamed of that and not talk about if it's such a good thing. But the other piece is this. We have so many people who are economically inactive.
Yeah.
So when Sadiq Khan says if you cut off immigration, there'll be a crisis in employment, he may well be right, but he's right for the wrong reasons. Why are we not getting the people that are in this country, black, white, gay, straight, tall, fat, thin, whatever, why are we not getting them to work for their own good and for the good of the country? And the other thing I'll say about immigration, I always think about immigration linked to the amount of money we spend on international development. We currently spend $4 billion on immigration and closer to 20 billion on international. The two things for me are us doing our piece in the world. So when people say I should have a higher figure, I'll point out to them I'm reducing immigration to keep that figure to do international development as high as it is.
No, makes sense to me. Anyway, Stella, what's your number? We've asked everybody to put a number on it. Come on, what's yours?
Oh, my God. Patrick, I love the fact that you are giving me the opportunity to quote my favourite movie, Mean Girls, "The limit does not exist."
The limit does not... OK, all right. I must say, you're off to a good start with that answer. But so we've had to put a question mark there, Stella. So the limit doesn't exist. So what does that mean? Does that mean that you just think everyone should be allowed in?
It means, no, that's not what it means. You can still have borders. I'm not an open borders lefty. I think you should have borders. You should have a points-based system where you look at the economy, you look where you have gaps, you look at your needs, and depending on that, you allow people to come in legally through the legal routes. And that does include universities, because we do need university students. But is it... Yes, it could be. It could be zero, but I don't think it's going to be zero. And it's not just based on the economy, of course, because there are other very valid reasons for people to come here. For example, someone may fall in love with a British person, believe it or not, and they may want to move here to get married.
Yeah, no, indeed. The problem, possibly, when people hear that, Stella, is that not just quite a soft way of actually saying that you don't really want any controls on immigration?
No, and I'll tell you why. I think it's just arbitrary to put a number. How do you know if 2 years from now or next year, for example, you had the coronavirus epidemic, for example, right? Which meant that suddenly you needed more medical staff. How do you know what's going to happen in the next year? You have a housing crisis. You need more construction workers. And this is why the Conservative government put new visa requirements to allow more construction workers.
We've got a house.
And that's where we went wrong. That's where we went wrong. Why are we not concentrating on the people in this country? We should be getting them to build the country.
We've got a housing crisis, Stella, because we've got too many immigrants have come in. Let me just come back to Patrick's point about Serco. One of my Telegraph readers wrote to say he's a landlord. He'd been invited to a Serco meeting. They were offering all the landlords a huge amount of fixed rent to take illegal migrants, and that is going to mean kids of my kids' age in their 20s, they are going to be bid up out of the ability to rent places because my taxes and your taxes are being spent by Serco to pay off landlords huge long leases, huge amounts of money. That is outrageous.
And sometimes, reportedly, sometimes as well, the renovation cost afterwards. So, right, we'll take this hotel, we'll give you this amount for it, and we'll renovate it after the asylum seekers have gone, right? Which may well, by the way, be never. And that was a point that I was alluding to, which is if you've got companies like Serco raking it in and they're looking to expand across Europe, I'll be honest with you, does that look to you like they're planning on this migrant crisis stopping anytime soon? It doesn't to me. And they're involved with the Home Office, not just here, but other countries as well. So they're plugged in, right?
The other thing, Patrick, as well, that's really terrible about that is the enormous pressure it puts local authorities under because they cannot compete with Serco. And they have a legal job, they have a legal statutory job to keep people housed, and then they lose out to Serco because Serco has more money. So actually there's a moral question there about who and when the government funds, because they fund Serco to the point where Serco can outbid the council. That's not good.
And if you put a cap on the amount of people you're going to welcome in every year, Stella, it helps out with that.
The cap would not affect illegal immigrants and asylum seekers. Even if you put a cap on zero, you say no more immigrants, people will still come in small boats. People will still try to illegally cross the border.
Yeah, but the number of those... Let's be very, very clear.
I want zero illegal immigrants.
Let's be clear.
Zero.
We're talking the difference between economic migrants and people seeking asylum. Now, people seeking asylum is a tiny number. Real asylum seekers is a tiny number and is irrelevant to this conversation. We're talking about people who are economic migrants. That is something we can and should control, because that's how you plan a proper country and also a proper world. But there's countries out there who are absolutely terrible, make people homeless, murder, kill and rape, and then we take them and let that situation.
But what the Conservatives are saying, that, you know, James Cleverly saying, oh, it's going to come down to 300,000, they are still not clamping down the vast numbers. The universities is a total racket. Not only are these people coming in to study, many of them completely allegedly bogus courses, but allowed to bring their, you know, mums, dads, aunties, dependents who aren't economically active and then are using the GPs and the food banks and the services. This is absolutely nuts. The government should be aiming to get it down to 200,000. 200,001 because that's Stella. Exactly. Thank you.
There we go.
I was about to say, don't forget about me.
All right, lovely point to end it on that, I think. Get ready for more of my wonderful panel in the lively newspaper review as my press pack tear through the very first of tomorrow's front pages. And next, Mad Dog Drakeford is leaving the Welsh Senate in a far worse place than when he found it, some would say. So, can his boss, Sir Keir Starmer, really be trusted with the keys to number 10, especially as his Labour Party goes ever more woke? The Dame with Game, Andrea Jenkins MP, goes head-to-head with political commentator Mike Buckley, and believe me, they are poles apart on this. Also, £1,000 cash, brand new tech shopping vouchers. Well, you could be the very first winner of our first Great British giveaway just in time for Christmas. Here's all the details of how you could make those prizes yours.
It's the Great British Giveaway, your chance to win 3 amazing prizes that will get your new year off to a great start. First, there's a terrific £10,000 in cash to be won. Imagine what you can do with that. We'll also give you a tech update with the very latest iPhone 15 Pro Max, plus £500 worth of shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store. The retail therapy could be on us. For your chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday, the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. I can't believe I've been banned from entering now. Oh, there we go. The world's gone mad. Anyway, is the Labour Party too woke to govern? Are they even more inept than the Tories? A fiery debate coming your way. That is next. Don't miss it.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Tomorrow's newspaper front page is next in my press pack, but right now it's time for another cracking head-to-head. So, Mark Drakeford bows out after 5 years as Welsh First Minister, apparently leaving the country in a worse state than when he found it. I'm not just talking about 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. Since 2018, when he took over, school children's abilities in maths and reading are now on a par with Vietnam and Slovakia. The Welsh are twice as likely to be stuck on NHS waiting lists than the English, and crime has rocketed whilst the economy has shrunk. Tory MP Penny Mordaunt hit the nail on the head in Parliament earlier on.
I would remind people of Labour's record in Wales. It's a good job, Mr Speaker, the nativity didn't take place in Labour-run Wales. Mary and Joseph would have been clobbered for an overnight stay levy. She'd have had poor maternity services. The shepherds would not have been able to take the time off to bear witness due to cuts in the rural affairs budget. And the three wise men would have arrived post-Epiphany due to the blanket 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. Poor condition of the road network. Don't fall for what Labour say. Look at what they do when they are in power.
OK, well, it's not just Welsh Labour running riot. Middlesbrough's Labour Council have got eyes rolling by trying to cancel one of the greatest ever explorers, Captain James Cook, by rebranding a shopping centre named after him and threatening to close a museum built in his memory. I mean, good grief, that's before we've got started on other Labour councils changing road names and all of this rubbish. Anyway, so can Labour ever be trusted to run the show nationally? Doing battle on this now is former Labour advisor Mike Buckley, and we've also got Dame Andrea Jenkins, MP, the former Education Minister. It's always ladies first. So, Dame Andrea, I'll start with you. You know, could Labour ever actually be trusted, do you think?
Definitely not, Patrick. I mean, I've got family who live in Wales. I'm going there to deliver Christmas presents next week, and they say it's gone to the dogs under Labour. And I've for one, sad to see him step down, because I think him and Labour Wales epitomises why people should not vote Labour. And you mentioned, Patrick, actually, about the changing of names and buildings. Let's not forget how they, cancelled out Winston Churchill by renaming roads and buildings named after him. And also, the Taxpayers Alliance have said recently how they spend £9 million on woke jobs, diversity, inclusion officers and wellbeing officers. So I think they epitomise why people should not vote Labour nationally.
All right, throw it over now to former Labour advisor Mike Buckley. I mean, finances in a bit of a mess, 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, alleged attacks on our culture and history. What do you reckon, Mike?
Well, I mean, the thing about Captain Cook, which isn't in Wales, is it? It's in Middlesbrough, I think. I was reading about that earlier on, and it's the owners of the shopping centre that have decided to rename the shopping centre. It's nothing to do with the Labour Council. And the museum is closing because the council is short of cash. And that is entirely a decision of this government, which, as we know, has slashed council funding across the country. But to come to Wales, I mean, Wales has been underfunded for 13 years, just like the rest of the country has been underfunded for 13 years by this government. So it's that is the fault. That Wales has got a more elderly population than the rest of the UK and a more sick population than the rest of the UK. It just hasn't had the resources to be able to take care of its people as it would want to. And I think in difficult circumstances, Mark Drakeford has done a very good job. But I was listening to what Penny Mordaunt said earlier on about the state of the country. And my goodness, it takes some gall to call out Labour in Wales for the state of the country. We've had a national government for 13 years. And literally, what has got better in the last 13 years? Literally nothing has got better. You look at the state of NHS waiting list, for example, record lows 13 years ago, record highs now. And Andrea talked about tax.
All right, go on,
We've got
Andrea.
the highest tax burden in this country now.
Right, I mean, you say about...
Just go for Andrea. Sorry. I'll come back to you, Mike. Mike, I'll come back to you, mate. I'll go to Andrea, yeah.
You're saying about Labour's being underfunded. Well, why did they announce giving, migrants £1,600 of legal aid, taxpayers' money, to fight deportation? Is that not a complete waste of taxpayers' money? Because I think that money should not go on woke jobs or giving it to lawyers who's trying to fight for the lefty causes. I think it should be going in hospitals, and the 20 miles an hour speed limit is just bonkers. Now, Labour like to control people's lives. I don't believe people should lead the lives that they want to lead. I mean, look what they did in lockdown as well. There was far stricter. Okay. Look how you went into supermarkets, and my sister said you couldn't even get certain items because they said it wasn't essential items.
All right, Mike, I mean, I heard what you were saying before. Obviously, come back to whatever Andrea has said there as well. But, I mean, you have to also acknowledge that surely Mark Drakeford was in charge of something in Wales, right? I mean, and it hasn't gone
he was.
well.
I'm not suggesting for a minute that Mark's got everything right. And actually, I'm not an expert on Mark's record, but in preparation for this afternoon, I was reading earlier about why things are the way that they are, in Wales, was looking at the record and was looking at the underfunding that they've had. They have been given more money, in terms of the total number, but that's been more than wiped out, for example, over the last 18 months by the fact that inflation has skyrocketed because of Liz Truss's so-called mini budget. So, I mean, that's a factor. And Andrea talks about lockdown and the extra measures that they took to try and protect lives. As a country, we've got the 20th highest death rate in the world. Out of all the countries, 200 countries in the world, we've got the 20th highest death rate because of mistakes made by this government, which are now being heavily publicised in the COVID inquiry. This government made an absolutely catastrophic mess of the COVID in this country.
Though, are you proud of their record in Wales? NHS Wales.
This is the thing, Mark. We are trying to zone in a bit on, with respect, the areas where Labour is in power, one version of it or another, whether or not it's a council like Birmingham, for example, where there were quite egregious wastes of money on things that didn't really work there, there were the road names, but there was also things like IT systems and taxis, etc., that all went a bit weird, and then they've gone pop. And then you do have a look at things like the Welsh NHS. I mean, it is fair to maybe look at that and go, well, hang on a minute. If Labour had...
It is, but you have to look at it in the round. The Welsh Government can only do what it can do because it gets a grant from central government. That grant has been dramatically cut in terms of real terms value, but also it's been cut because of the fact that we've had a stalling economy for the past 13 years and because of the fact that we've had such rampant inflation for the last 18 months. You have to look at it in the round.
OK, all right. I think the concern for a lot of people as well might be that if Labour goes after the kind of cultural stuff a little bit, well, we've alluded to that. Can I just say thank you very much, because I've thoroughly enjoyed this debate, and I can see this pairing working again in future. So you should be careful what you wish for, saying yes to coming on this show at this time, I think. But there we go. It's Labour advisor, former Labour advisor Mike Butley, and Dame Andrea Jenkins, MP, as well, the former Education Minister. So, whose side are you on? Make sure you tell me in the inbox. gbviews@gbnews.com. But coming up, the final episodes of The Crown are out. Netflix have done a number on Prince Harry, but also Kate Middleton's mum.
Because you've always had your sights on someone else for me. Come on. You've always loved the idea of me and William together.
Shock. I mean, mum likes idea of daughter marrying into royalty there. But anyway, we'll pick through some of the most sensational clips from the new series. But next, my press pack, they're waiting in the wings to chew through the first of tomorrow's front pages. And blokes, would you get a male contraceptive pill? Would you take it? Ladies, would you trust him to take it? It's all getting very personal when we return. I'll see you in 3.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Let's bring you tomorrow's news tonight now in the liveliest paper review anywhere on telly. The very first front pages have just been delivered for my press pack. Right, so we go in with the Eye, probably the dullest front page of the day, so we'll get that out of the way. Interest rates may have to rise next year, bank warns. Moving on, The Guardian. I think we're going next, are we? Yep, there we are. We will stand until the end. This is on the front line of Ukraine, obviously a picture story there. The one on the right here is interesting. We're going to talk about this in more detail. 4 held in Europe in Hamas terror plot. We're going to go over to The Telegraph, which kind of expands on that story on their front page. Hamas plot to kill Jews in Europe foiled. Plans for a cross-border attack in the West signal a change of tactics from the terror group. Like I said, we'll discuss this with the panel. Just stick with the Telegraph for a second for me, please, because there's actually a couple of really great stories on here as well. Tony Blair took £1 million donation to ban fox hunting, says Mandelson, and this talk of an under-16s ban on social media use or limiting it as well. So good front page from the Telegraph there, lots on it. Go to the Metro. Kidnap Alex walks free. Interpol search for Brit child ends in France. This, frankly, it's an unbelievable story, actually. So this guy, I say guy, he was 11 when he vanished to be, what will he be now, 17, I think. 17, yeah. He was believed to have been abducted on holiday 6 years ago. He's been found in France. The Mirror also going with this story. Lost Brit boy found after 6 years. He says he was kidnapped by mum and taken to a Spanish commune. He's supposedly going to be repatriated to Britain, well, we think anyway, in the next day or the coming hours, potentially. A truly remarkable story. Look, I'll go over to my panel now. I'll start with this just because it's probably the story that kind of most jumps out in the sense of how bizarre it is. So it's important to understand we don't know a huge amount at the moment, but, you know, this guy, 17-year-old now, was supposedly abducted, 6 years ago, has been found. It's remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, but what does abducted mean? Abducted, we normally think kidnapped, don't we? We don't normally mean family members have taken them into some... I mean, it's not unknown, Patrick, particularly in the States, is it? As people walk off with small children into cults and the grandparents don't see them again. But it is an amazing story, isn't it?
I mean, the detail is that he handed himself into a police station after hiking to freedom in the foothills of the Pyrenees.
But that's the thing, is it? So when you're... I don't know the legal status of who is his legal guardian, but when you're 11, if your mum takes you somewhere, you probably don't feel abducted, but he's grown up, probably realised some stuff and sort of thinking, hold on a second, I remember this differently, and handed himself in. Because it's interesting, how would they have kept him if he has been abducted and kept in this place?
Well, he was from Greater Manchester originally, wasn't he?
He's like any Mancunians I know. He's a strong gut of a guy, made his mind up and started marching.
I mean, well, look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to whiz us along a little bit because that's essentially all the detail that we know about that at the moment. But, I mean, hopefully he's all right. And I can see a Netflix series in the making there already. I don't know about you.
Definitely,
but we'll focus in on the Telegraph. Hamas plot to kill Jews in Europe foiled. I'll give you a little bit more detail on this. Hamas plot to kill Jews in Europe was foiled by German and Danish police, who uncovered the terror group's alarming change of tactics. They're supposedly going to be using a cross-border attack. They were under orders to bring a cache of weapons from an undisclosed location in Europe to Berlin to attack specifically Jewish institutions. I mean, Stella, does this just show where we're at, unfortunately, at the moment? Is there an enemy within in Europe, do you think?
I don't know if there is any. I think it is a very terrifying story. I hate the idea that there are people who could be plotting to carry out terrorist attacks. I think we need to be vigilant for sure. Extreme times call for extreme vigilance. It is very, very disappointing, especially when you're thinking about the fact that a lot of these people, they have come to Europe, their families could have a very good future here, away from the war-torn countries where they're coming from. And a lot of these people, you can imagine them being young and angry, looking at the situation in the Middle East, and they are ruining their lives.
OK. Alistair, I mean, this is your paper, the Telegraph. It is a cracking front page, I must say, but this is the lead one on it. Your views?
Well, we have, only a few weeks ago, there were reports, it was reported in the Express, that there were at least 6 illegal migrants who'd come across and who were being regarded as terrorist suspects. And this is my great fear about this great wave of illegal migration, a huge number of young men from the Middle East and North Africa coming ashore on the south coast here, having torn up their documents. We've got no idea, Patrick, where they've come from. And so it's not just a question of stop the small boats. It's very possible, I would say, that we could be seeing a terror attack in the United Kingdom.
OK, now, I'm going to just move us along one now, because I'm going to go to you first on this one, Sean. All right. British blokes have been given the great honour of becoming the first in the world to trial a new contraceptive pill exclusively for men. The pill, which has been dubbed the holy grail of pregnancy prevention, halts sperm production by blocking vitamin A supplies, and with clinical studies finding it's 99% effective. I just do not like that 1% wiggle room, by the way. This pill could soon usher in an era of shared responsibility for contraception. I don't want to get too personal, but Sean, would you ever use it?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'm lucky. I have 2 children. I'm married. And if I thought for a second this would be easier than my wife taking the pill, the pill seems to have a lot of associated madness. And as someone once said to me, it would always be easier to block men's fertility than it would women. So I personally would take it. And you imagine, when you're growing up, I wasn't like this growing up, but there's a lot of men out there who are
Lord Sean Bailey, everybody.
who are running around sowing their wild oats. They should welcome this. They should welcome this. And the serious point is this: family planning should be a joint responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, if your wife or girlfriend could turn around and say to you, well, you could have took the pill as much as I could, I think the world would be a very different place.
Alison, you don't see it happening, do you?
I do love your sex, Patrick, but let's face it, you can't be trained to put the toilet seat down. The idea that you could be relied upon to take a pill every day, a contraceptive pill every day, it's never going to be equal because women are the ones who fall pregnant. Women have got a much stronger vested interest in making sure the contraception is reliable.
Alimony, that alimony is quite a motivating factor there.
Oh, quickly, Stella, what do you think about this? Would you?
I think it's high time, Patrick. I can't believe you're reactionating. I'm really.
Do you think they would take it?
I
Do you
would
think they would? Come on, Stella.
Yes, I do think there are men who would take it. Not all men, Alison. Not all men
Not
are
all
bad.
men.
There are some good men out there.
I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they're not. They're not.
I do think there are some men. You know what? Just tell a man, listen, it's either this or you're having kids.
Yeah.
Wow.
The one thing I will say, as a man, no matter what happens, you still don't have to have that baby.
OK, there we go. Now, Penny Mordaunt impressed the nation. But, right, Penny Mordaunt impressed the nation with her leadership bid and coronation cameo earlier this year. She was taking no prisoners in Parliament today as she slammed the SNP's record in Scotland with a rewritten version of the 12 Days of Christmas. Watch this.
But I think we should have a festive roundup, Mr. Speaker, on SNP morality. 12 hours of police questioning, 11 grand roaming charges, 10 years without school inspections, 9 sham embassies, 8 years of poor child mental health, 7 years without ferries, 6 years shirking welfare powers, 500 million overspent on Edinburgh's tram, 4 million to install a heat pump, 3 high-profile arrests, 2 overseas jollies, and a dodgy Jaguar EV. I thank the honourable lady. I have succeeded in bringing a smile to her face.
Yeah, well done. Well done.
Someone buy that speech right
Very good, very good.
Red line.
Anyway, make the most of it whilst you can, Penny, because you might not have any of that lot left in the Commons after the next general election. Look, coming up next, we have even more of tomorrow's newspaper front pages for you. And when did Prince Harry finally admit this?
Up. Oh, that's Harry Wells' job.
I actually honestly just can't believe they cast that bloke as Harry. Oh, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Anyway, yes, new explosive clips of The Crown are still to come. I'll see you in a sec.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like? I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GBNews.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
All right, welcome back. I have got some more of the front pages. They've just been delivered, hot off the press for us. So, The Sun. Ben and Kat get a rise. So these pair have been lined up to replace Holly and Phil on the sofa. Presenters Ben Shepherd and Kat Deely are set for big money deals as the new faces on this morning. We'll go to the Times. Hamas plotted attack in Europe with cache of buried weapons. Every single front page has come through. It's got like slightly more detail on this Hamas terror plot to attack Jews across Europe. Pro-vaping campaign funded by Big Tobacco. Also, this picture story there of Alex Batty, the boy who disappeared at the age of 11 while on holiday with his mum in Spain, has been found, by the way. Mystery phone calls from missing Gaynor to a friend. This is on the front of the Express. Gosh, missing mother Gaynor Lord made 2 phone calls to a friend on the day she disappeared. It's emerged. More details will indeed emerge as well. OK, and we go to the Mail now. As kidnapped boy crosses Pyrenees to freedom. Where's Alex been for the last 6 years? A British boy allegedly kidnapped by his mother 6 years ago has been found in France after, apparently, walking across the mountains to freedom and handing himself in. We also have the new Crown, made by Harry's Netflix paymasters, portrays William egging him on to wear Nazi fancy dress, and a picture of a bloke who doesn't, to be fair, look anything like Prince Harry, wearing a Nazi uniform. So there we are. I'm joined by my press pack. We've got Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson, Conservative peer Lord Sean Bailey, and former Labour aide Stella Chantakidou. I think we should probably just zone in a bit on what the Mail have said there about the Crown, because we do have a couple of clips of this now. So they've gone off with a bang. It's fair to say that shots have been fired. The dynamic between William and Harry as heir and spare is spot on, really. Should we have a little look?
I can't be normal or a success, can I? And eclipse you in any way. I'd make a mockery of the whole show. So it's Willie Gold Star, Harry Black Sheep, Willie Saint, Harry Sinner, Willie Solid, Harry Lost. I know my job to be the fuck-up in this family, don't you start to?
Yep. And as Kate's mum tries to play matchmaker between daughter and prince, things get fiery.
Was it a coincidence you encouraged me to sign up to the art course in Florence, where William was expected to go? And then to the expedition in Chile as well, where he went?
I thought you'd thank me. You said you liked him.
Well, yes, well, then I grew up.
Alison, what do you make of that? True to life on both counts?
Well, Sean just said he looks more like Prince Harry than the Prince Harry actor. He's terrible, isn't he, the Prince Harry actor?
It's awful. I mean, the actor might be good, but he doesn't look anything like him.
Looks nothing like him. I get more... The nearer it comes to the present, the more I dislike it. I thought it was great in, Claire Foy as the Queen. It was absolutely wonderful in the historical stuff. When it's starting to wade now into Kate and William and who got off with whom and all this, did William force Harry to wear a Nazi uniform? Yeah, right, come on.
Yeah, indeed. Pushy mum syndrome from Kate's mum, do you think, or doing the right thing, wanting the best for her daughter?
Well, let me tell you something now. If there's a spare future King of England for my daughter to marry, I would be pushing
Off you go.
I would be pushing too. Yeah, and look, we don't know if it's true, but I a little bit we hope it is.
Yeah,
because she'll be. If Kate's mum will be sat at home saying to her friends, "Was I right?
Was I right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. And also, still, the chances of it happening. Pushy parents. I mean, hey, we might be doing her a rampant disservice here. Although I'm not sure we are. Stella, what do you make of the idea that Prince Harry? Well, Netflix is saying Harry was forced to wear a Nazi uniform. I mean, I'm sorry, but you can't be that thick,
Yeah, I'm sure he was forced. I'm sure they put him down and they chained him and they took his clothes off. And I'm sure he didn't enjoy the banter one bit, and he was feeling really, really guilty the entire time, and he couldn't wait to go home and put on his pajamas.
Now he's married to Miss Moral High Ground. He's in big trouble, isn't he, really? So he has to pretend it was the brother pressuring him into it.
Yeah. No, 100%. Well, we are gearing up now. I think it might actually be time to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. Alison, who's your Greatest Britain?
Fantastic Kemi Badenoch put amazing, ferocious display on at the Women Inequalities Committee, absolutely pulverising Labour MP Kate Osborne, who was talking a lot of woke nonsense about trans and children. So refreshing to see a Conservative minister refusing to bow down and grovel before these leftist bullies.
All right.
Well done, Kemi.
You know
Go,
what?
girl.
Here are the receipts.
Also made these statements using inflammatory language that likens children and young people coming out as trans to the spread of a disease.
I've never said that. That is a lie.
Well,
that is a lie, and I think you should withdraw that statement. That is a lie. You are lying.
I think she might have been lying. Anyway, Sean, who's your greatest Briton?
My greatest Briton is David Davis, MP, who intervened in a homeless man being beaten. And him and Good to Harry, they got this man, they protected him, and then he brought him home and let him stay for the night. So I hope that young man has found a place to stay. And I just want to say, I'm proud, A, as a Conservative, and B, just as a human being, that he intervened as someone who's obviously in a tough situation and protected them.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I'm right in saying you took him to hospital the next day as well, because the man was still bleeding. So well done, David Davis. Stella?
My greatest Briton is Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London, because he has been very honest with his voters this week. He said that the plans to cut immigration would affect London recruitment, and he's right. He's being honest, and for that, I think he's doing a good job.
OK, all right. You know you're not going to win, though. Okay, but there we go. The winner is Sean with David Davis. It was a toss, a very close-run thing between Kevin Badenoch and David Davis, but there we go. He's won because I think that's a kind of outstanding and quite unique individual. I think Kemi will be back with more very soon. Alison, Union Jackass.
Well, it's honorary. It's the COP28 Jamboree in Dubai. Climate change, 70,000 attendees flying in to lecture ordinary people about getting rid of the oil and gas that makes life comfortable and bearable. An absolute circus of hypocrisy and power-mad hypocrites, basically.
All right, don't hold back. Let's tell me, Sean, who's your Union Jackass?
My Union Jackass is Aviva for their plans to vet all white men for senior positions. I think things like this set up animosity, they set up black people to fail. If you want to help black people succeed, there's much better ways than creating some kind of exclusive club at the top. And also, who made their boss the avatar of all things woke? This is ridiculous. Stop this, because it will just cause animosity in other places in society.
Fair enough. Stella.
My Union Jackass is Lord Cameron for defending the UK's decision not to vote for the UN resolution demanding ceasefire for Gaza, because I think he's being a lightweight of a foreign secretary, and I think he's not being a good friend either to Israel or to the UK.
Oh, OK. We could have done that as a standalone topic, actually, to be fair. Well, it's double Sean tonight, I'm afraid. I have gone for the Union Jackass being Aviva and the CEO. And, yeah, I was going to say, you know, I could boycott Aviva now, but they're not going to notice, are they? It's one car insurance in the country. I'm not going to try and make a moral stand. And to be fair, they were the cheapest, so there we go. Anyway, right, thank you very much. Wonderful panel. I've really enjoyed it tonight. Thank you, everybody who's been watching and listening. I will, of course, be back again tomorrow at 9 p.m. for another rip-roaring show to crown off your week. Up next, it's Headliners for a more in-depth look in their unique way at all of the papers. See you tomorrow.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, it's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. It's going to be breezy, increasingly so across northern parts of the UK over the next 24 hours. Patchy cloud carried in on that breeze, but with lighter winds and clearer spells further south, we're going to see a chilly night. Now, high pressure is building in from the south, but that's not going to lead to entirely fine conditions across the UK because we're going to continue to see a strong westerly breeze. In fact, it's going to increase over the next few days. And during the early hours of Friday, it will bring some areas of cloud, especially across northern parts of the UK. So with the cloud and the breeze increasing in the north, generally frost-free. Further south, lighter winds and some clear spells will lead to a few fog patches by dawn and temperatures close to, if not a touch below, freezing. So a chilly, but for many, bright start across England and Wales, eastern Scotland as well. However, through the afternoon, we're going to see the cloud thicken once again across northern and western parts of the country. Spells of rain increasing as well over western hills. It stays bright towards the east and southeast of England, 8 or 9 Celsius here, whilst despite the cloud further west, we'll see mild air carried through, and that will continue into the start of the weekend. A very mild start to Saturday. A lot of cloud, though, and an increasingly strong wind. Gales for northwestern Scotland, heavy rain for the northwest Highlands, and that's really going to mount up through Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Drier further south.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Who is it? We're We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified.
I'm playing strip poker with you three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You're with GB News. The top story tonight. Police are saying there are some indications why a woman in Norwich may have left her work more early than usual on the day she went missing. Gaynor Lord was last spotted on CCTV cameras on Friday afternoon, and Norfolk Constabulary say it is likely the 55-year-old may have entered a nearby river. The force says specialist divers have been working today in extraordinarily challenging conditions, and it could take a couple of days or longer to complete their search.
So there's a number of lines of inquiry that we are pursuing, but at the moment everything that we know is pointing to a high probability
that Gaynor went into the water. And that would be from the CCTV, from the very limited witnesses that we've got available to us at the moment, and other lines of inquiry that we're pursuing about Gaynor's behaviour in the lead up to her disappearance. So at the moment the river is a really key factor for us. Now it's not to say that other specialist police teams aren't working on other lines of inquiry, because they are, but at the moment you're seeing that intensive effort around the searching of the water and the parks around and some of the other land around this area.
Meanwhile, a missing British boy who's believed to have disappeared 6 years ago has been found in France, Greater Manchester Police say. The boy was spotted in Toulouse yesterday morning. He was just 11 years old when he went missing, but is now a teenager. He originally left the UK to go on a holiday to Spain. The force said it's now in touch with the French authorities to put what they're calling safeguarding measures in place. The UK has signed an international treaty with Japan and Italy to develop a new generation of stealth fighter jets. The deal will aim to build military planes with supersonic capability. The headquarters for the Global Combat Air Programme will be based in the UK, and the planes are planned to take to the skies in 2035. A second probe into South Wales Police has been launched by a watchdog following a road collision in Cardiff last May. 16-year-old Kyrie Sullivan and 15-year-old Harvey Evans died after the bike they were riding crashed in Ely. The new investigation is focused on complaints made by the boys' families. It's separate from another investigation into the interactions with police officers and the teenagers before their deaths. Rebecca Welch will make history as the first woman to ever referee a Premier League match later this month. The 40-year-old will take charge of the Fulham-Burnley game on December the 23rd. She began refereeing in 2010 and in January became the first woman to officiate a men's championship game. Meanwhile, Sam Allison will also take charge of a top-flight match on Boxing Day, making him the Premier League's first black referee for 15 years. That's the news on GB News, across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon. I'll be taking you through tomorrow's top stories for the next hour. And I'm joined by the thinking man's gammon. It's Paul Cox. And the Twitter... It's still funny. And the Twitter housewife's choice, it's Lewis Schaefer.
Yeah, everybody's...
So many fans online.
Everybody's choice. The men love me too.
Really?
Yeah, in America, I was the least manly man, but the men just, they love me.
Is it topless calendar?
It could be. Maybe they're turning gay or making men turn gay in my good looks.
There was that Alex Jones thing about turning the frog gay. The British gay.
But you know what? Because I just had a full body scan where it's called a DEXA scan, where I found out that I only have 19 kilos of fat on me.
Wow. We'll be going through those results extensively throughout the show. Paul, how's your scan? Any good?
No, I didn't know. I don't think it was very good as Lewis's, to be honest. But
turned anyone gay?
No, I haven't turned anyone. Have I? Right in.
We've got to do the papers. But sorry, we'll get more banter in a minute. Let's do the front pages. So the Daily Mail has "Where's Alex been for the last 6 years?" Heartwarming story. We'll be doing that in a minute. The Times pro-vaping campaign funded by Big Tobacco. Sounds like a potential conflict of interest. The Guardian: we stand until the end on the front line in Ukraine. The Mirror: lost Brit boy found after 6 years. The Eye: interest rates rise next year, bank warns. And finally, the Daily Star: your sofa is making you thick. And those are your front pages. So let's start with the Telegraph, Paul.
We should just say, you're serene when you're hosting.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it just puts us all at ease.
Thanks so much.
Wonderful stuff. So the Daily Telegraph front page: Hamas plot to kill Jews in Europe foiled. So this is 4 people have been arrested in Germany and the Netherlands on suspicion of being part of a cross-border Hamas terror plot that German prosecutors had aimed to obtain weapons to target Jewish institutions in Europe. They go on further to say one of the group was accused by the prosecutor of having started searching for an underground weapons cache in Europe to no later than this spring on the orders of Hamas based in Lebanon. So, of course, this is fairly terrifying stuff, although inevitable, I fear.
Yeah.
Of course, this is there are people on our own streets chanting for a global intifada, and a global intifada doesn't mean it's going to stay in the Gaza Strip, so it's got to go somewhere. Thankfully, on this particular occasion, the German prosecutors have been able to apprehend, capture, thwart, all those good things. But I think this is just a sign of things to come, Nick.
It is frightening. I was going to say, why don't they send these Hamas people back to where they came from? Barnet. Right? I mean, I'm making a joke, but it is a horrific story. What do you think, Lewis?
I think it's exactly